Hi students, how are you today? I hope everyone is fine. This is a new video which I am going to explain about the passive voice. I am going to teach you more information about the passive voice. We are going to start with the lesson profile. In the lesson profile, we are going to learn about three different forms of the passive voice. We are going to learn about the present passive voice, the past passive voice, and present perfect passive voice. Okay, so we are going to continue with the introduction. Okay, when we learn about the passive voice, we have to know the difference between passive and active. Passive means a kind of past time, not necessarily the past simple tense. We are going to refer some past time actions, okay? And active means a kind of present, but be careful because this is just a form to know the difference between passive and active, okay? Also in active sentences, active voice sentences, we can use present, we can use past, we can use present perfect tenses, okay? So we are going to continue. When we use the passive voice, it's important to know how we can form the passive. So we need to know two important elements. Here you are going to find some requirements to form the passive voice. In all the passive voice forms, it's important to use the verb be and past participle verbs. For example, when you use the present passive voice, you are going to use the present simple tense of the verb be, which is am, is, or are, and the negative am not, isn't, and aren't, plus a past participle verb. When you use the past passive voice, you are going to use the past of the verb be, which is was, were, or wasn't, weren't for negative sentences, and also a past participle verb. When you use the present perfect passive voice, you are going to use the verb in present perfect, which is have or has been, and haven't or hasn't been for negative sentences, and a past participle verb. As you can see, in all the forms you are going to use the verb be and past participle verbs. Okay, we are going to continue with the objectives. Okay, in this lesson we are going to use the passive voice to talk about trade and processes, but in general we can use the passive voice to speak about past things. Okay, there are some essential understandings that we need to know. Okay, and how can we use the past passive voice? Okay, for example, we use the passive voice when it isn't important to know who performed the action. We don't know who does the action. Okay, and we focus in the object instead of the subject. In the passive voice, it's more important to refer the object. Okay. This is a picture, and in this picture you can see a person with a credit card. I can say, for example, my credit card was stolen. In that sentence, I use the passive voice. Okay, my credit card was stolen. Okay. Now we are going to continue with the features about the passive voice. Okay. Sometimes you are going to see a sentence named active voice. Okay, but for example, people don't pay farmers enough. This is an active voice sentence. Why is active voice? Because in the sentence it's more important to know who does the action, the people, and the verb is active, don't pay. Okay, that sentence we can change in passive voice. For example, farmers aren't paid enough. This is a passive voice sentence. Okay, let's see some changes in this sentence. Did you see the difference? In the active, the verb is in present, don't pay, negative. Okay, in the passive, I don't use the auxiliary don't, but I use the verb be in present, in negative, aren't, and the verb in past participle, paid. In passive voice, the subject is not mentioned. Okay, sometimes it's not mentioned. Okay, we will continue with the procedure. Maybe it's not difficult, but it's a little tricky to form the passive voice. Okay, but I'm going to give you some steps and tips to form the passive voice. This is a sentence in active voice. For example, Greenpeace has protected animals in danger around the world. This is an active voice sentence. Okay, how do you change this sentence in passive? Step 1. Identify the tense. In the sentence, the tense is present perfect. How do you know is present perfect? Because the verb is has protected. That is the present perfect. Step 2. Use the verb be in present perfect and add a past participle verb. Okay, and you are going to get the result finally. Okay, finally switch the subject. Remember, in the passive voice, it's more important to refer to mention the object. Okay, let's see. This is the active voice. Greenpeace has protected animals in danger around the world. You are going to change in passive. Animals in danger have been protected by Greenpeace. In this case, I mentioned the subject in the sentence in the passive voice, but if you mention the subject in the sentence, you are going to use the preposition by. It's important to know this. Okay, so now we almost finished. What do you think? Is it difficult, the passive voice? Maybe yes, maybe no. We need to practice this. Okay, so we are going to do a little assessment before to finish. Okay, assessment activity 1. Write into passive the sentences below. Mexican filmmaker Alfonso Cuarón directed the film Gravity. This is active voice. In passive voice will be the film Gravity was directed by Mexican filmmaker Alfonso Cuarón. This is the passive voice. What about this? Weavers have produced beautiful Persian rugs for several thousand years. This is active. If you change into passive, you are going to say Persian rugs have been produced by weavers for several thousand years. What about this one? Pixar Studios animates the most successful Disney films. This is active. How do you change into passive? You are going to say Disney's films are animated by Pixar Studios. Okay? Okay. I think that's all. Thanks for watching and see you later.